Master of Ceremonies, Dr. Beth Gierke.
Hi, well, good afternoon, and again, thank you for joining us for what has become definitely the highlight of our aerospace homecoming every year. So welcome. Before we get started, I do want to just let everyone know this tradition started back in 2018 when we were celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Odegard School. With that, we inaugurated our first class into the Aerospace Hall of Fame, and we have done it every year since. So I do want to take some time to recognize, again, those earlier inductees. First off, we've got Jim Sweeney in the front of the room. Mr. Pat Halligan. Pat, please stand, be recognized. Bob Muse, where did he go? Right back there. And it looks like Bob is trying to sneak into the famous 1985 flying team. So gentlemen, along with Kent, please stand up and be recognized. Again, just like Athletic Hall of Fames, we thought it'd be neat to induct teams into our Hall of Fame as well. And so our first national championship team was a 1985 team. I understand we also have Pat Hines, who wasn't able to come in 2018 to join us. So thanks for coming now to see what the induction ceremony is all about. And kind of a funny story. So this is our 7th year. And I mentioned to Kent saying, you know, I think it's time that we look at inducting another team into the Hall of Fame as well. And so Kent went back and started talking about it, and no one rises up to the level of the 1985 team. So we'll see, hopefully. So congratulations, gentlemen. So today we are going to be recognizing Captain Todd Gierke and Captain Todd Lawrence into our Aerospace Hall of Fame. Each year, I have the privilege of getting to interview the inductees to learn more about their backgrounds, which includes their time at UND as well as their career accomplishments. Unique this year is our inductees have some uncanny similarities, besides the fact that they share the same first name of Todd. While students at UND, both were proud members of the Delta Upsilon fraternity, and I'd like to recognize gentlemen from DU. Please stand up, and they are all aviation students as well, so thank you for joining us today. And I understand they are just, and I know Jim and Todd Gierke were instrumental in putting together the new Delta Upsilon fraternity house that's having an open house this afternoon as well, so staying connected. Both Todd and Todd went on to have successful careers in their airlines, navigating through various slowdowns in the industry that resulted in some furloughs and some career shifts that really built them to who they are today. But I think one of the neatest similarities is the fact that they both have children that are either attending or attended the University of North Dakota. That shows their faith and dedication to this school. So Ryan, Todd Lawrence's son, is here studying aviation, which we love to see. And then we also have Kayla and Alyssa, who studied marketing and biology pre-med within our programs. I should mention, though, even though with Ryan studying aviation, it's not too late for Alyssa and Kayla, because their father actually joined the aviation program after a year of med school. So I'm just saying there's still a chance we might see you in our classes over here as well. So we'll start out with Captain Todd Lawrence. Todd grew up in Minnesota with his eyes on the sky, wanting to fly airplanes. And then, as he said, a sign from God appeared, which was a pamphlet announcing a UND presentation with none other than Ken Polovitz. And unfortunately, Ken, for the first time, is not with us here today, but I know he would appreciate that. He was a sign from God. So Todd and his parents went to the UND outreach event, and shortly thereafter, he was sold on UND by Ken, like many of us were back in the day, and he enrolled in the University of North Dakota in the fall of 1988. While on campus, Todd got involved with the Delta Upsilon fraternity, oftentimes even back in the day referred to as the flying fraternity, and I think evident by the gentleman with us today still holds true. He started his flight training his freshman year and was fortunate to have John Odegard Jr. As one of his first CFIs, and he recalls him being a very tough CFI that held him to very high standards, which was great to start his flying career. After graduating from UND in 1993, Todd moved back to the Twin Cities, where he began flight instructing while also getting employed right away by Sun Country Airlines. Now, not as a pilot, but he spent his days flight instructing and his evenings driving the shuttle bus for the crew, as well as being a customer service rep, answering the phones. Of course, his dream was always to fly for Sun Country, and that day came in 1996. And for 5 years, Todd enjoyed flying for Sun Country Airlines. Then turbulent times hit the airline, both with 9/11 and the financial crisis in '08 hit this airline particularly hard, where operations were suspended for a period of time and bankruptcies were filed. Instead of looking for another flying job, Todd went back to school, and he pursued a degree in law enforcement. This opportunity allowed him to give back to his community, and he went on to serve 5 years as a patrol officer for the South St. Paul Police Department. It's a role that Todd was able to hone his skills for deeply caring and protecting his colleagues, that then transferred well into his management role at the airline. With his passion still, though, being aviation, in 2011, Sun Country was brought back out of bankruptcy, and he returned to the airline. And his aviation career literally took off. He was quickly upgraded to captain, became an instructor and line check airman for the airline, and was recruited into a management role as their chief pilot. Since joining the management of Sun Country, first as their chief pilot, now as their director of operations, the airline itself has gone through significant growth under his leadership. Since 2016, when he took that role as a chief pilot, the airline has tripled in size in nearly everything, from pilots to aircraft to revenue. Again, that kind of growth is always hard to sustain and do it well, but Todd has done a great job in leadership, making sure the airline stays true to its roots and culture of caring for its employees. Fortunately for UND, during this time of growth, Todd also saw the need to hire qualified pilots, and so he turned to his alma mater, thankfully us, as a source of those pilots. Thus, the Sun Country Airline Bridge Program was created. This is really a unique pathway that will take a UND graduate, and upon meeting their restricted ATP requirements, flight instructing for us at UND, they go right to Sun Country Airlines as an FO in the 737 aircraft. Todd has been absolutely instrumental in the development of this unique program and also tweaking it. It wasn't necessarily easy for an airline that is used to bringing in more experienced pilots to take, a fresh CFI flying Archers and Seminoles into a 737. Since this program has been developed to date, 40 graduates have gone through the pathway program, with 5 of them already upgrading to captain at the airline. And there's likely to be more, because I just saw your colleagues at our career fair on Tuesday recruiting more students to Sun Country. I think Todd also mentioned that about a third of your pilots are UND alums, so definitely have a strong network of UND at Sun Country. So significant growth can be a challenge for anyone in a leadership role. However, if you ask pilots, and I have, after I interviewed Todd, reached out to some of my colleagues at our Sun Country, and really anyone at Sun Country, Todd is extremely well respected and admired for his ability to always put the employee first and to take care of them regardless of the situation. He's created a unique culture that we don't always see in the airline industry among the pilots at Sun Country and the chief pilot's office. The pilots know they can always go to that chief pilot's office for support. I will conclude, though, there was a little disheartening fact I learned when I interviewed Todd, is apparently, and I think Todd's bosses are here, so maybe I need to bring them into the conversations as well, there's going to be an airplane painted with the gopher scheme. Is that something about being the U of M, official airline? And I'm thinking, after this, I'm not sure if you're busy or not, but we might take a trip over to the athletics department. Too bad the president, we have the provost here now, though, so maybe he can help. Trying to think of what we need to do to get UND a preferred customer, as well as a paint scheme along the way as well. So again, please welcome me in joining Captain Todd Lawrence into the 2024 Aerospace Hall of Fame.
Well, Beth, that was pretty much my whole speech. But thank you for that amazing introduction. Very much appreciated. And thank you for this amazing award. And I really want to especially thank Beth, Courtney, and Angie for all your coordination for this wonderful event. I know there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes. And if I didn't mention everyone, I want to thank you too. So what an honor to be here. Talked to Dean Krause a little bit earlier, but about 2 months ago, I got a phone call or a message that was left saying, "This is Dean Krause, can you contact me?" So reached out to Ryan. I said, "Ryan, what'd you do?" He says, "I don't know, Dad, give him a call." So I gave him a call. This wasn't even on my radar. I thought maybe, Ryan's awesome. I knew it was probably giving me a compliment of some sort, but that's me being biased. But I thought maybe he wanted to know when I was coming up next as far as, connecting with the students or wanted an update on the bridge program. But instead, he broke the news to me that I was nominated into the 2024 UND Aerospace Hall of Fame. So you probably should arrange a couple paramedics standing by for that, because my heart was just, I was shedding tears. But anyways, I reached out to my wife to break the news, and she had mentioned to me, well, we knew about that, because I'm not the one that applied for it. Actually, my family did. So when I was walking through during SAM, I saw the Hall of Fame, and they noticed how much I admired it, and I knew a few of the people that are up on that wall, and I go, wow, and those are amazing people, So they took note of that, and I was getting phone calls and messages, they're asking some unusual information, asking for a resume, and to find out that was the information that they needed to collect to apply for this award. So thank you to my family. I love it very much, and no need to get me any Father's Day gifts or Christmas presents, or you're covered for the rest of my life, just to let you know, all right? There's a lot of people. The only reason I'm here today is because of the support and the opportunities, and really the people that believed in me, and a lot of love as well, that I'm here today. I wouldn't have been able to do that without them. And to start with that is my mom and dad, Tom and Kathy Lawrence. You can see them around the corner there. I'm so proud of them. I wouldn't be even standing here today without my wonderful parents, Tom and Kathy. What they sacrificed to make sure my sister and I were well taken care of is nothing short of amazing. When I was young, my dad and uncle took me up on my first flight. I was hooked. I knew what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And that's a typical story of a pilot, right? You get there, it's like, this is what I really want to do. And my dad at that time was actually working on his private pilot's license. He really wanted to be an airline pilot too. And my Uncle Rich was an instructor at that time, instructing at Wings. Rich went on to become a pilot for Mesaba, and then eventually the VP of Flight Operations for Mesaba, and now known as Endeavor Airlines. But Dad, unfortunately, had to give up his dream. The economy wasn't great back then, Dad, right? The interest rates were at 18%. We were living in a trailer at that time, and there wasn't much money out there during those times. So he had to give up his dream to work harder to provide for his family. When I expressed interest in becoming an airline pilot and start school, they weren't going to let the same happen to me. They're going to do all that they could to see that I reached my dream. And they did just that. And then my years at UND started then. Thank you, Mom and Dad. But they went on and had their own careers, not in aviation. My mom was a chief deputy clerk of court, and my dad was a court reporter. So they had two wonderful careers on their own. But thank you. And to my wife, Jennifer, my wife of 30 years has been by my side through this entire journey. A lot of ups and downs, as Beth has said, along the way. 3 furloughs and a brief stint in law enforcement after 9/11. And you can probably remember, Todd, there wasn't much as far as jobs back then. I had a family to raise. I always thought about law enforcement in the past, because my mom and dads were in the court systems. Mom would always take me down to work. I met a police officer. I knew if anything happened, that's what I wanted to do. So it was an immediate decision. I was going to go into law enforcement. But you can imagine once I got into it, how much stress that added to my wife, especially when I worked at nights, right? And nothing good happens after midnight, I'm telling you that. And the recall started happening at Sun Country, and I kept bypassing. The industry was still, very wobbly. Finally got that letter that says either come back or you need to resign. And that letter was on the counter, and she says, you're going back. I said, no, I don't feel good about it, And now she says, you're going back. And the reason is because she knew that aviation was my number one love, and she was willing to take that chance to get back into the industry. And it's been nothing but uphill from there. So thank you, Jenny. And to my kids, Mackenzie, my oldest daughter, Brad, and Ryan. They're my proudest accomplishment, was raising these 3 children. I'm so proud of them. Mackenzie, she's a graduate of the Aveda Cosmetology School. She's currently in cosmetology for the last 3 years, and she's recently certified as an instructor. Now she's teaching the new up and coming, so I'm proud of you, Mackenzie. You're doing fantastic. My son, Brad, an Afghanistan combat veteran who recently was honorably discharged after 6 years of serving our country. Now kind of following his dad's footsteps as well, going to school for law enforcement. He's going to graduate next summer with a criminal justice degree, and he's currently working as a community service officer in our city of Cottage Grove as well for the last 3 years. And they absolutely love him there. I've talked to the captain I've coached with in the past, and they would love to bring him on board once he gets his license. And Brad, whatever city that you decide to work for, you know, they're going to be lucky to have you because you're going to be a wonderful protector of that city. I'm very proud of you. And my son, Ryan, following Dad's footsteps, attending the best university in the world, right? And flourishing, absolutely loves it up here. He came home for the summer just to kind of recharge his batteries a little bit, and probably spent a week or two, and he's ready to come back up again. So he loves it up here. He doesn't come home much, which says a lot, you know, so he's currently working on his commercial instrument, and Ryan, you're going to be a wonderful captain someday for an airline, so I'm very proud of you. And at Sun Country Airlines, 31 years ago, like Beth had said, while instructing, I picked up a part-time job at Sun Country answering phones at night and driving the crew bus. And it was really fun driving the crew bus around because I really got to meet the flight crews and the pilots. I said, I want to be a Sun Country pilot someday, you know, and just were really cool people, you know. And these were people that are getting furloughed every summer. That's the way it was back then. You know, you go through the spring break flying, which was really busy. When summer came, about 50, 60 pilots got laid off, you know. But man, they always held their heads high, and we're ready to come back again in the fall. Whoever thought that I'd eventually become a Sun Country captain? And then a 119 chief pilot for 6 years, and now currently the director of operations. I thank my lucky stars every day that I get to work with such a great team every day. I would like to thank, and just to let you know, Greg, I had this before I knew you were coming up here, just to let you know in this. I would like to thank our CEO, Jude Bricker, our Chief Operating Officer, Greg Mays, who's present today, our Senior VP and Chief Human Resource Officer, Eric Levenhagen, and my current boss, our Senior Director of Flight Operations, Bob Waltz, for giving me the tools and support to support my team and my pilots, which is the best part of the job. Again, I wouldn't be standing here today without their support and the opportunities that they provided me. Thank you. In UND, this might be a little rehash, Beth, but 36 years ago, I made the best educational decision of my life to apply at UND. I met some amazing people, starting with Ken Polovitz. Like Beth said, I come down to Bloomington to talk about the aviation program. And when it was done, I knew that I wanted to be part of the UND family. I remember at that time, again, the economy wasn't great, the industry wasn't doing good. I remember Kent saying, when you all graduate, this is how many are going to have a job. And that's the way it was back then, but I was willing to take that risk to be part of this family. Aside from Ken, I also got to know Kent Lovelace with my numerous visits to the dean's office, not because I was in trouble, but I enjoyed connecting with Ken and Kent because I looked at both as my mentors. They provided such great advice along the way to help me keep on track to graduation and beyond, and I have enjoyed continuing this relationship on a professional level. Thank you to both. I also want to thank one of the best instructors a student could have, John Odegard, Jr. He was tough in a good way. If he had to do a lesson 3 times over to move forward, that's what he did. I thank him for that because it instilled in me to strive for excellence and perfection. I learned better study habits because of him. As a result, I never failed or registered an incomplete in training throughout my professional aviation or my law enforcement career. If I had, I certainly wouldn't have been given the amazing opportunities along the way, nor would I be standing here today to accept this award. I've always wanted to give back to the program for all that's done for me. Finally, when I got into management, I was able to work with Beth and Kent and the Sun Country team to start up the UND Sun Country Bridge program. Like Beth had said, a direct path from the Seminole to the 737. How cool is that? Like Beth has said, we hired 40 and still growing, and 5 of them are now captains flying the 737. Not only just domestically in all the normal airports, but on the charter flights, they're flying into airports they've been to before and they'll never see again. And they're doing it successfully. My time spent at school has shaped who I am today. The friends I made and the support that I was given to this day show up in the way that I manage my pilots. And I want to let you know I still bleed green today. I used to coach hockey, or all my kids' sports, lacrosse and hockey back in the day. Had one coach that I coached with that was an avid U of M hockey fan. He did not like UND, so we made a bet. UND and U of M played each other. So he made a bet where whoever loses, you got to wear the opponent's jersey during a hockey game on the bench. And I'll tell you what, he looked great in green. In closing, I'll remember this moment for the rest of my life. I'll promise you this. I will carry on and continue to make this great university proud. How? By promoting, staying involved, mentoring, and contributing wherever needed. In addition, I'll continue to make our bridge program even stronger than it is today. Again, thank you. Thank you.
Again, congratulations, Todd. Now we have Captain Todd Gierke. Born in Grand Forks, Todd grew up in a cattle ranch in Watford City and began flight training at just 14 years old and achieved his private pilot certificate while still in high school. Growing up, there was really never a doubt that Todd would attend college at the University of North Dakota. His father, the Honorable H.F. Gierke, was a distinguished alum of UND who had received both a SUE award and an honorary degree from the university. It was also expected at that time that Todd would become either a doctor or a lawyer, a respectable career while at UND. However, that expectation didn't stop Todd from enrolling in an aerobatic flight course his freshman year at the university and continuing his flight training on the side throughout his 4 years of college. Todd graduated from UND in 1988 and began medical school the following year. However, his passion for aviation never wavered, and after a year of medical school under his belt, he took a leave of absence to begin his aviation career. This was large in part thanks to John Odegard for what Todd calls as taking a chance on him. If Todd would have been, maybe a few years later and we would have had our master's and PhD programs at the time, I'm pretty sure Todd would have excelled in all of those. But instead, he excelled in getting his flight instructor certifications, all of them. Todd was the ultimate flight instructor at UND from 1989 to 1996. He taught in pretty much every single airframe we owned at the university, likely probably the only person ever to do so. He was instrumental during this time in developing and teaching in the Spectrum program. This was our international contract training primarily, and he was the lead jet instructor flying our Citations, our Beach Jets, the King Airs, developing the training for those programs as well. Then if that wasn't enough work, on his free time, he would go across the ramp and got all of his helicopter certifications and ratings as well. He taught in our float plane, taught aerobatics. He even had the opportunity to take the then U.S. Secretary of Transportation, Samuel Skinner, up on an aerobatic flight lesson. Todd remembers the look on John Odegard's face as they were getting, imagine the Secretary of Department of Transportation taking him up on an aerobatic flight, and John's look to Todd was, "You better not mess this one up." Apparently he didn't. It was a successful flight. Todd is also one of the very few Gold Seal flight instructors in the country that has all 7 different instructor ratings on his certificate. This is so unique. In fact, then they added, the powered lift that you're looking at, so it was 7. So this includes single engine, airplane multi-engine, helicopter, gyroplane, glider, instrument for both airplanes and helicopters. It's so unique. I taught our CFI ground school class. I took a photo of the back of Todd's CFI certificate because, again, you don't see that very often where someone has all of those and actually has instructed in all of those. I admit and he's taught in the float plane course as well. So again, the epitome of flight instructing, which comes with also continuous learning as well. In 1996, Todd made the difficult decision to leave UND and begin his airline career at Skyway Airlines. However, due to his extensive experience in teaching and developing curriculum at UND, specifically in our Beech 1900, during his initial ground school, he was promoted to captain, and then shortly thereafter hired as their director of flight standards and training. Before leaving Skyway for their parent airline, Midwest Express, in 1998. In 2001, Todd was hired by Northwest Airlines as a DC-9 first officer. And like many pilots at the time, Todd found himself furloughed due to the impact of 9/11. During this time, Todd spent some important time first being a stay-at-home father for his young daughters at the time. And then thankfully, he found his way back to UND for a couple of years and once again was instrumental instructing, this time in our helicopter program. We had just brought the West Point contract back, as well as we were kind of getting to our second round of international training and started developing the jet training courses for that as well. Then in 2007, Todd returned to flying for the now Delta Airlines, where he continues today as a captain and line check airman on the A319 2021. In fact, I was in Fargo this summer and ran into Todd. He was about to leave IOE with another UND alum, who I'm assuming she hopefully did fine. So again, gets to mentor and train airline pilots still. This past year, Todd was recognized as one of the top 0.1% of Delta employees by receiving the Delta Chairman's Club Award for his dedication to strong customer service. He's written something like, 8,000 personal messages to customers who fly on his aircraft. At UND, we have been incredibly blessed to have Todd as one of our dedicated Delta Propel liaisons for the past few years. Here, he works closely mentoring students, being present on campus all the time, thankfully, because his daughters are here too, so it's always a good reason to bring Dad back to campus. He helps us with events, whether it's Delta Propel events or just other events. This fall, we welcomed in one of our largest aviation classes to date, and Todd was there, the chaos at the dorms move-in morning with snacks and treats for the students, and then that evening we had a large hangar feed, and thankfully was able to secure 90 pizzas that augmented the 1,000 subs that we ran through. So again, appreciate all of that involvement and mentoring of our students. Our Delta Propel Pathway program is definitely one of the largest pathway programs at the university. Todd and his wife Jan, also a UND alum, she made it all the way through medical school. So thankfully you had that year stint there, right? They support many things on the university campus. One of the unique ones, again, leaning back into his love of flight instructing, they support our CFI of the month. Every month, students can nominate a flight instructor, and then the leadership team at the airport selects who's the most deserving, and their contributions help support that program. They also give scholarships both to the aviation program as well as the medical school. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming and congratulating Todd Gierke into the UND Aerospace Hall of Fame, class of 2024.
Well, thank you. I'm incredibly honored. It's almost beyond words. To find the right words to, the school just means so much to me. Truly, John Odegard, he saved, kind of my career. I started flying, like I say, very early, 14, got my license in high school, and that was very unusual back then. Really, nobody came to UND with their private, back in those days. So I was definitely driven towards flying, but I just felt the responsibility. Not necessarily, little family pressures maybe. My mom was a Northwest flight attendant, so there was definitely some aviation there. But, and as Beth mentioned, even my freshman year, I told my dad, I'm taking the aerobatics course. He's kind of like, what's that got to do with medicine? Well, I had my private, that's the minimum requirement for the course. So it was a fun time. It just kind of solidified my interest in aviation. My instructor at the time was Al Palmer. And little did I know that he'd become my boss, a few years down the road. And I also ended up teaching the aerobatic course on campus as well as at the airport. So again, didn't see that coming at the time, but it seemed like it was just meant to be. Spent a lot of time, working through school. activities with the Delta Upsilon fraternity. It's a fantastic organization. I'm glad you guys could all be here. Proud that Todd's here, joining me as a DU into the alumni, into the Aerospace Hall of Fame. Jim Sweeney as well. And we actually have a fourth member, Eric Poole. He's also a DU. So there's 4 of us now. So DU's got a good presence here. So that's a good thing. I'd like to thank everyone for coming out today. Appreciate all the faculty and staff. Dean Krause, Beth, for all your help. Courtney, Angie, again, all the help they had getting us organized. Me calling at the last minute saying, can I get 5 DUs in? And calling back a week later and saying, I got 5 more. And then I got 1 more. And they were just saying, yep, no problem, no problem. So it was really appreciated. Truly do appreciate it. Mentioned was earlier how John Odegard kind of saved me. When I started medical school, I just knew it wasn't in my heart. My wife was 2 years ahead of me in medical school. My big brother in the house, Brad, 2 years ahead of me in medical school. Something I thought I wanted to do, but once I got there, just realized aviation was just really where I wanted to go. So took a leave of absence, did more flight training on my own, came back around, went to the med school and just said this just isn't going to work for me. So I was kind of lost. I was kind of like, okay, now what? I got my undergraduate degree, pre-medical courses, a lot of science, biology, organic chemistry, which I've never had a use for it anywhere. Chemistry actually came in handy. We get into batteries, so I'd start showing people battery equations, lead acid versus nickel cadmium, show the reactions, understand specific gravity. Foreign students loved it. U.S. students, not so much. But left the medical school, and I was like, now what? Went to John Odegard. At the time, they didn't hire anybody unless they went through their program. And it's still kind of true today. There's a lot of demand for instructors from UND to have jobs at UND. So when I went to him, it was like, well, we don't hire people unless they went through the aviation program. But he gave me a shot. He called Don Dubuque. Don Dubuque gave me a quick interview, and they put me to work. And it was an adjustment. I was basically a Part 61, which is basically doing all the required training on my own with instructors, not through like an organized program. UND is a very organized program, which is the way to go. So I had to adapt to the 141 program, and I was able to do it. It was a lot of work, but I had tons of support at UND. Whenever I had a question, Don Dubuque, Al Palmer, Jim King, Dana Seward, all these people were fantastic mentors to me. Had a lot of great opportunities to fly with Dean Odegard. So hopefully he felt that the opportunity he gave me, that it was worthwhile, and that the risk he took, hopefully he never regretted it. But I did get a chance to fly with him many times. He did my initial ATP and initial jet rating in the citation. Got to fly with him as a pilot in the citation. Did my seaplane rating with him. So a lot of interesting opportunities. And again, always had 100% support at UND, and I'll never be able to repay them enough for that. Spent a lot of time at UND. As Todd mentioned, there was a lot of turmoil in the industry. When I talked to UND students, and again, I was just going to comment on this room. This is one of the greatest rooms on campus. This is my 6th time. I did 5 presentations in this room. And I'm hoping after tonight I'll have a little more priority. So whenever I do want this room, I'll be able to get it, because this is a fantastic room. But yeah, it was just great opportunities. And like I say, bad timing is what I always tell the Delta students when I come in. And again, Delta will be on campus here next month if you're interested in coming to Delta Airlines. Come check it out. Yeah, it's just fantastic opportunities here at UND. And the time I spent here, I took advantage of it. Every time something was offered to me, I'd say, I'll go do it. Nobody wants to fly aerobatics. It's scary. I'll go do it. Nobody wants to fly tailwheel with our Chinese and our foreign students. A little scary, they thought. I'll do it. And all those things led to opportunities for me that I never would have seen otherwise. Led me into the Spectrum program, teaching contract students, how to be commercial instrument pilots. Led into the King Air program, teaching turbine aircraft. And again, where anywhere in the world will they turn somebody loose with 5 hours of aircraft time with an aircraft? That was UND. Never flown turbine aircraft before. Oh, here's your 5-hour minimum requirement. There you go with your students. Same thing with the citation. Turned me loose as a captain on the citation with only maybe 10 or 15 hours in the aircraft. Beach Jet 400, same thing. I got to go pick them both up down at Wichita. 5 hours in the aircraft, turned me loose with the airplanes. Again, Nobody, no insurance company in their right mind would ever do that. But again, because I'm from UND, no problem. Again, just thank you to everybody who's here. It's fantastic coming back here. Thank you to Captain Dave Barnes, one of the individuals who nominated me, one of my coworkers at Delta Airlines. Also to Captain Karen Ruth, another person who nominated me. She couldn't be here today, but she sends her wishes. Wouldn't be here without you guys, with all the support and help that you guys provide for me. I love talking about Delta Airlines. Captain Halligan in the back, he knows all about Delta. I love talking about UND, and I love talking about the DU fraternity. As I mentioned before, we spent a lot of years putting together a new fraternity house for these guys. You're all welcome to come by. There's an open house at 4 o'clock if you want to check out the new house. Chances are your reaction is going to be like most people. It's like, this is way too nice for a bunch of fraternity guys. Because it is a beautiful house, so we encourage anybody if they want to come by and see it. Again, all I can really say is thank you. Thank you to my family. Thank you to my wife. Coming up on 30 years. Just to show you how committed I was to UND, we got married in 1994. Built a house in Indiana, or bought a house in Indiana. A week or two later, came back and went back to work at UND. And I was still here a year and a half later, living separately after we got married. And it was just because I was having such a good time. You know, people are even suggesting at UND, my boss is like, well, maybe things won't work out. You know, stick around. So it was a great place. When I left in '96, I can honestly say I cried like a baby when I said goodbye to John Odegard. He gave me a big hug and wished me the best in my career. And I'm just fortunate that I can come back and be involved in the students and give back to the students. And we'll always try to do the best I can to, always represent UND in the best light possible. Again, thank you very much.